Hello. First of all, a trigger warning. This video discusses triggers, emotional reactions, and eating disorder behaviours. It mentions body image, comments from loved ones, guilt, shame, and urges to engage in eating disorder behaviours. Please watch only if you feel ready to engage with the topics, and please take care of yourself and pause or step away if needed. I want to start by saying this clearly. Triggers are real, comments can hurt, and sometimes they hit very old wounds and can feel intense. If that happens to you, you're not weak. You're not failing at recovery, you're just human. And this video and another one called Supporting a Loved One with an Eating Disorder, Stop Walking on Eggshells, is partly in response to a video that I made 10 years ago about what you shouldn't say to someone with an eating disorder. Since then, my perspective has changed a lot, and I think that working on our responses to triggers can be far more powerful in recovery, and that's what this video is about. So one important thing to recognise in recovery is that you can't build your safety or boundaries around hoping that the world never says anything wrong. That's not realistic, and it keeps you fragile, dependent on the world staying safe, even though you know that it can't. And what helped me more was learning how to respond differently when something stung, to give less power to those comments or situations. Many people living with illnesses are very aware of their impact, often more than anyone else's. You reflect, apologise, try to make yourself smaller, carry guilt and shame. Sometimes it feels like the only way to protect others is to disappear entirely. And because when someone says something that hurts, the illness often turns it into proof that they don't understand you, that you can't cope, that you're too much, too heavy, too damaging. And then it pushes you towards behaviours. And it can be easy to blame people around you, loved ones, carers, staff, for what they said, how they said it, or for bringing up triggering topics like diets, bodies, or even well-intentioned comments like, "You're looking so well, you look really healthy." It can be easy to blame yourself for reacting, for being too sensitive, for failing somehow. But the truth is that that pain, that fear, that anger, it's the illness driving the intensity. It isn't your loved one's fault, and it isn't yours either. And recognising that helps you to separate what belongs to the illness from what belongs to you. And that's where the practice begins. So every time something hurts, every time you feel triggered, it's an opportunity to practice, to notice it, to name it. Okay, that hurt. And to let yourself feel it without rushing to judge or punish yourself or others. To pause and ask, did they mean harm? What do I do next with that? And sometimes that next step is opening up honestly, letting them know that what they said didn't land right and that it isn't their fault and that they don't need to change, but you're sharing how it made you feel so that you're less alone in processing it. And other times it's more internal, breathing, grounding, letting the feeling move through, noticing the urges without acting on them, reflecting and practicing self-regulation. An example from my perspective and an experience that I had over Christmas was I actually met up with a couple of my colleagues in my eating disorder work, and we met up and had lunch, and they got chips. They offered me one, and I thought I would challenge myself, said, "Yeah, which one do you recommend?" And they recommend the triple cooked ones. And I said, "Okay." And I took a bite, and one of them said, "It's probably dripping in fat, but that's what makes it good." And I was triggered. I had this reaction, I kind of want to put this down now. Like, okay, that didn't help me to hear that. That's something I struggled. And I chose to process it internally. I was like, okay, this is a chance to practice. This is one of those times where I can process in my head, is it really dripping in fat? Is the fat really that bad for me? Is my body really going to notice it in the long term? Is it actually perfectly healthy and fine? I'm probably not going to make a dent. I process it in a way that I need to process it to get through what I need to get through. But I also could have been honest. I could have said to them, "Ooh, that stung a bit." Or I even could have said it after the fact where I said, I pushed myself and I continued to eat that chip, and I felt like it was good practice for me, but just to let you know, it did give me an initial response of kind of wanting to stop eating it. And that doesn't mean that they then have to avoid ever saying anything like that, but it might mean that in the future, if they do happen to say that, they have an awareness that it has upset me in the past. They may kind of go, "Oh, this is a really rich food," and they go, "Oh, are you okay? I hope what I just said didn't trigger you." And it gives them that ability to know where you're at and check in and say, "Hey, are you feeling anything right now? Because I'm aware that you might." And having that validation of what you're feeling, having someone know that you might be feeling a certain way, can be very, very powerful in recovery and feeling understood and feeling a lot less alone in things. It's not about them changing their behaviour, it's about you letting people know where you're at. And the point isn't to get it perfect. It's not to stop feeling pain, it's to practice responding differently each time. Over time, that builds real strength, real resilience, real freedom. It means that you can sit at any table, at any conversation, and know that you have the tools there to try and protect yourself when things may come up that could hurt you. Someone can mean care and still hurt you. You can feel triggered without making them the enemy. Both things can exist at the same time. And every time you practice, noticing, pausing, responding, you weaken the pattern that the illness has been feeding on. You take back your choice, you take back your power. And avoiding triggers might feel safer in the moment, but practicing responses slowly, gently, imperfectly is what builds independence, what builds confidence, and what builds the ability to live your life without the illness controlling every reaction. You don't need a world where nobody says the wrong thing. What you need is tools. You need self-trust and compassion for yourself while challenging the illness. You just build upon it slowly, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. Every trigger is practice and every sting is a chance to grow stronger. And your feelings do matter. And learning how to hold them without letting them control your behaviour, that's where real recovery starts. Thank you. I hope that this video might be helpful and not too big speech. I have a WordPress where I blog, try to do it as regularly as I post on here. Please do check that out. I often go into the same topics as here, but I go into a little bit more detail because of course I can add it and edit them a little bit more easily. And I hope that you are doing your best to stay well and look after yourself, and thank you. See you soon.